So I'm going to start reading the work of the masters. It says, I have just explained that the human beings who attain adeptship, but a few remain on the earth as members of the occult hierarchy, to promote the evolution of life upon accordance with God's plan. At present, there are some 50 or 60 these supermen so engaged, and of their general work, our president has written as follows in her pamphlet on the masters. They aid in countless ways the progress of humanity from the highest spheres. They shed down light and life on all the world. They may be taken up and assimilated as freely as the sunshine by all who are receptive enough to take it in. As the physical world lives by the life of God, focused by the sun, so does the spiritual world live by the same life, focused by occult hierarchy. Next, the masters specifically connected with religions use these religions as reservoirs into which they pour spiritual energy to be distributed to the faithful in each religion through the duly appointed means of grace. Next comes the great intellectual work wherein the masters send out thought forms of high intellectual power to be caught up by men of genius, assimilated by them and given out to the world. On this level also they send out their wishes to their disciples, notifying them of the tasks to which they should set their hands. Then comes the work in the lower mental world, the generation of the thought forms which influence the concrete mind and guide it along useful lines of activity in this world, and the teaching of those who are living in the heavenly worlds. Then the large activities of the intermediate world, the helping of the so-called dead, the general direction and supervision of the teachings of the young pupils, sending of aid in numberless cases of need. In the physical world, the watching of the tendencies of events, the correction and neutralizing, as far as law permits, of evil currents, the constant balancing of the forces that work for and against evolution, the strengthening of the good, the weakening of evil. In conjunction with the angels of the nations also they work, guiding the spiritual forces as others guide the material. So this is where lots going on when you're asking these things. And there's, like I say, 7 body energies receiving, doing things. And there's so many angels in that. So stop worrying about Archangel Michael and his flaming sword. Let him put it out and go rest for a while. That thing must be really hot to hold on to. The Parishes. We may consider more fully some of the lines of work here indicated in small compasses with a sweep of vision for which our president is world renowned. Though the number of adepts is small, they have arranged that in all the world no life shall be disregarded or neglected. So they have divided the earth into special areas in somewhat the same way as the older countries. The church has divided the whole land into parishes, so that wherever a man may live, he is within one of these geographical divisions and has a definite church organization to administer to his spiritual and sometimes to his bodily needs. The parishes of adept, however, are not country districts or parts of towns, but huge countries and even continents. As the world is presently divided, one great adept may be asked to be in charge of Europe, another looks after India, and in the same way the whole world is parceled out. The parishes do not follow our political or geographical boundaries, but within his territory the adept has all the different grades and forms of evolution to regard. Not only our own, but also the great kingdom of the angels, of the various classes of nature spirits, the animals, vegetables, minerals beneath us, the kingdom of the elemental essence, and many others of which so far nothing has been heard by mankind. So there is a vast amount of work to be accomplished. In addition to the guardianship of the adepts, each race or country has also the assistance of the spirit of the race. So if you're native, you have a spirit that works with you. If you're Oriental, you have a spirit that works with you. A diva or a guardian angel who watches over it and helps to guide its growth and correspondence in many ways to the ancient concepts. A tribal deity, though he stands at a considerable higher level, such for example as Pallas Athena. So these beings are real, even though they created legends and stories. And like I say, some of it is really distorted and hard to understand. There are many different sets of influences at work in the service of the logos for evolution of man, and naturally all operate in the same direction and in cooperation with one another. We must never make the mistake of attributing to these great agencies the disasters which sometimes overtake countries, as in the case of the French Revolution and the recent upheaval in Russia. Those are due entirely to the savage passions of the people, which have run riots and caused destruction instead of construction. They illustrate the dangers to which the work of the adepts and the spirits of the race is exposed. When they make experiments along dramatic lines, there is terrible evil involved in tyranny, and sometimes great suffering also, but at least there is some sort of a control and a great problem in getting rid of the tyranny is how to do it without losing social stability and self-control. When that goes, many persons fail to keep the human end uppermost in their own personality. Passion rises, crowds run riot, people become liable to obsession by great waves of undesirable influence. The national angel tries to guide the feelings of the people. He is interested in them in great masses, and he would, when necessary, urge them to great patriotism and heroic deeds, just as a general might encourage his men to advance in the field of battle, but he is never reckless with their lives or careless with their suffering, for more than a wise general would be. And this is where, like I say, they don't force you to do anything. When you're asking for something, they don't just do it instantly. They do it over a gradual time to be really sure that's what you want. This is where everybody wants to be, from kindergarten to graduating university in split seconds. And everything in life, spirituality, everything is evolution. It takes time. And you got to incorporate new knowledge, new this. You got to get rid of old bullshit beliefs. You got to get aware and conscious of your sexuality, because most people live only for their sexuality. They go around being angels and dressing up and doing yoga, all kinds of stuff. But all they live for is sexuality. Everywhere they go, that's all they're looking for. That's the only drive they have. Other people will say, oh yeah, medicine. And they're doing every kind of plant, every kind of thing. Like lots of people, they smoke marijuana and say, oh yeah, it's medicine. And you watch them, they'll do joint after joint. They smoke like 5 pounds a day. And they're saying they don't abuse it. They don't do this. Oh, I use it for this and that. And then they sit around with other people and just smoke dope and eat gummies and do all kinds of stuff. I'm like, you're abusing it. It's going to abuse your body. It's going to abuse your brain. Same with alcohol and anything else. Food is the worst. People love abusing food. Always trying to find something new because it's a stimulant. And there's so many things that stimulate human beings, and we just do it. We never think about it. And then we cry over, oh, I don't feel good. Oh, I don't feel sick. I think I'll go to the doctor so he can fix me. That just sort of jumped out of me. And this is where people want to heal. It's like, are you really going to get serious with yourself? Distribution of force, so the universe. A large part of the adept work, as we have seen in the early chapter, lies at levels far beyond the physical, as they are engaged in pouring it out, their own power, and also the forces from the great store filled with nirmanakaya. It is karma of the world that it shall have a certain amount of this uplifting force at its service. And even ordinary men who turn their wills into the line with the divine will by directing their thoughts and feelings to the service of humanity add a little to the reservoir and are thus privileged to share it with the great sacrifice. On account of this, humanity is evolving as a unit, and the miracle of brotherhood enables everyone to make much more progress than would be even remotely possible were he standing entirely by himself. All this is part of the scheme of the Logos, who apparently have calculated upon our taking part in his plan. So when you decide to work with the universe, they get you to do things. And they allow you to use the energy. When you decide to start using it wrong, they'll just cut you off. They don't need to let you use it wrong and show off and be some movie star or whatever and prance around like a pony. It's not what it's about. On account of this, humanity is evolving as a unit, and the miracle of the Brotherhood enables everyone to make much more progress than would be even remotely possible were he standing entirely by himself. All this is part of the scheme of the Logos, who apparently has calculated upon our taking part in his plan. When he devised it, he thought, when my people shall rise to a certain level, they will begin to cooperate intelligently with me. Therefore, I will arrange so that when they come to that point, they will be able to draw upon my power. So if you're connected with Jesus or Sananda or Saint Germain, and you connect at the right time and he recognizes, he's going to start allowing you to tap into this energy. And he's going to allow you to use it for certain reasons. And this is where people think they're powerful. Oh, I'm going to be a shaman. I'm going to take a shaman course this weekend. And I grow up. The Brotherhood is one with all humanity on higher levels. Through its agency, the distribution of the supply of force from the great reservoirs take place for men. The adepts are raying upon all egos without exception in the higher mental planes, and thus giving the greatest possible assistance to the unfoldment of the indwelling life, the life that is like a seed which cannot die and must grow, because the principle of evolution, the Logos himself, is at the heart of its very being. In man, the plant has already in man, the plant has already risen through the soil and is seeking the upper air, and the rapidity of its development is now very largely due to the sunlight of the spiritual forces that come through the channels of the hierarchy. This is one of the many ways in which the more advanced help the less advanced, and this is where I'm trying everything to help you all. You're either going to accept and become this, or you're going to go back and you're going to find some place to dive into the sewer system and go swimming. I'll see you in 10,000 lifetimes from now. Your choice. You don't have to believe this if you don't want to. You're meant to if you want to. Many things that want to come through. This is one of the many ways with which more advanced help the less advanced, as they share more and more of the divine nature in accordance with the divine plan. Each of the adepts who have undertaken this special work is raying out upon the enormous number of people, running often into many millions simultaneously, and yet such is the wonderful quality of this power which he pours forth, that it adapts itself to each of these millions as though he were the only object of its influence. It appears as though what for us would be full attention, we're being given to that one. So some people think they're the only one doing this. It is difficult to explain on the physical plane how this may be, but it arises from the fact that the Master's nirvanic consciousness is a kind of point which yet includes the entire planet. He can bring that point down through several planes and spread it like a kind of vast bubble. On the outside of that huge sphere are all the causal bodies which he is trying to affect, and he, filling the sphere, appears all in each individual. In this way, he fills with his life the ideas of millions of people and is for them respectively the ideal Christ, the ideal Rama, the ideal Krishna, an angel, or perhaps even a spirit guide. So this is where they make you that. You're not making yourself anything. This is quite a different kind of work from the superintendent of one of the great parishes, and in it the masters pay attention chiefly to the people of one type. Those who are developing along his own line of evolution, though naturally most of them are quite unconscious of his actions. And this is where these guides are there and you're unconscious of it. They've always been there since you were born. He also has many special cases to deal with, and for this purpose sometimes delegates parts of this work to devas, leaving them considerable liberty within certain well-defined limits. The devas, in their true employ nature spirits, and make a variety of thought forms, there is thus a large field of activity connected with their work. And this is where sometimes you'll see all kinds of things around people, and people will think it's spirits and all kinds of bad stuff, but you don't really see and understand what it is. And people go ballistic, and they're always wanting to cast out demons and fight with the darkness and everything. I'm like, it's not what it's about. The use of devotion. In the science and the sacraments, I have explained how the great ones take advantage of the ceremonies of all religions to pour out their powers over the world on the lower planes, and thus to stimulate in as many men as possible the spiritual growth in which each is capable. But it is not only in the connection with religious ceremonies that this is done, for the Brotherhood makes use of every opportunity that's offered. If there be a gathering of people who are all under the influence of devotion, all bent for a time being upon nobler and higher thought, such a gathering offers the adept an unusual opportunity of which they will straightway make use, since it forms a focus which they can employ as a channel for spiritual influence. When people are scattered and living in their homes, they are like a number of separate lines down each of which but a little force can flow. But when they come together at a meeting, it is as though these were combined to make a kind of pipe through which much greater flood of blessings may be poured than the sum of what could descend through the separated lines. And this is where all of us, all this energy is coming and going. This is where lots of things go on. Hey, needle and thread. And this is where the Creator and all these higher beings are doing all of this stuff. I have seen 1,000,000 pilgrims together in the holy city of Benar, many of them no doubt ignorant and superstitious, but for a time full of devotion and utterly one-pointed. The mass of devotional feelings generated by such a crowd is almost incalculable. The adepts never miss the opportunities of utilizing it for the good. It is, of course, unquestionable that a similar number of equally enthusiastic but intelligent people would supply vastly more forces, and also force capable of playing upon the higher planes altogether. But we must not for a moment make the mistake of ignoring the value of the vast amount of energy produced by ignorant and even fanatical people. And there's so much ignorant and fanatical people all over this planet pretending to be spiritual and all kinds of stuff. and it's a real truth. Everywhere you go, you will come across this. And some people want to join in singing bowls and all kinds of other stuff because they're fanatical. They don't care. They're ignorant. They don't care. And they don't care what they do with their minds. They don't care about universal law. They don't care about the betterment of any other human being or anything. And you have to be careful of that, because I see a lot of people who are pretending to be gurus and masters and scientists and all kinds of things. You have to be really, really careful. The members of the Brotherhood have a wonderful faculty of separating the evil from the good, or rather the drawing out of the last ounce of force which can be used for good, even from the midst of the great deal that is evil. It is common to find the most intense devotion allied with bitter sectarian feelings. In such a case, the adept will extract and make use of the very particle of the devotional feeling, simply ignoring and leaving behind the savage hatred which is to use, which to use seems to be part of it. Therefore, people with most undesirable characteristics often produce a certain amount of good karma, though it is undeniable that it would be far greater if it were disassociated from the other unfortunate qualities. Such a city as Benar is always a tremendous center of force, even quite apart from the annual pilgrimages. It is a city of shrines and relics, and these also can be utilized as channels by the adepts. And the same is true of such things the world over. In some places, for example, there may be a relic of a great saint belonging to any one of the religions of the world. If the relic is genuine, a certain amount of strong magnetism does radiate from it on the account of its connection with the worthy man. It may therefore be used by sending through it a stream of force to bless those who reverence it. In many cases, however, the relic is not genuine, but that which is to us would seem the most important fact in reality matters less than one might suppose. If for a long time people have made a great center of devotional feelings around it on the account, along the Brotherhood could use it as effectively as a genuine relic, and the fact that people are deluded in their beliefs does not affect its usefulness, since their devotion is genuine, and that is the important thing. So that's where I always say it's around your belief. What you really believe, the universe makes a reality. And that's where it can do lots and lots of things people don't understand. If for a long time people have made a great center and devotional feelings around it, on the account alone the Brotherhood can use it as effectively as a genuine relic, and the fact that people are deluded in their beliefs does not affect the usefulness, since their devotion is genuine and is the important thing. If this were more fully understood, it would probably check many thoughtless people who are inclined to ridicule the superstitions of the Catholic peasants in Italy, Sicily, and Spain, or to look down upon Indian coolies because they pay homage to some shrine which is obviously not what it is supposed to be. There is no doubt that truth is better than error, yet we must remember that it is not well to tear away from the ignorance the objects of their devotion until they are able to raise to a higher things by such iconoclasm. The world is the poor, for by it not only is devotion destroyed, but useful channels of the master force may be closed. And this is where you can't destroy what other people are doing. It's like the universe is always working in some way or form. Besides, it's obviously impossible for an ignorant peasant to judge as to the genuineness of the relic, and it would be grossly unfair that the effects of his devotion, poured out with good intentions in all innocence of heart, should be made to depend upon the fact as to which he can have no knowledge. In the great world of reality, things are never so badly managed as that. The true devotion will find full the hearty responses, whether the object around which it is centered is or is not all the devotee thinks it to be. The devotion is the real thing, the only thing that matters. It must and does receive the real return which it deserves. The supposed relic is merely a point upon which it is focused, and an imaginary point will do for this as well as any other. So, on the next page, there's a bit of a graph I'll be showing when I get there. And then it says the work by the pupil. So everybody is a pupil. I don't care how much knowledge you have. I don't care how many certificates or anything. It's like we're all pupils. Even if you were 1,000,000 years old, there are beings above you that are even more older, and you're a pupil of them, and you keep climbing your chakras higher and higher. You're in your 50th chakra, you're in your 1,000th chakra, whatever it is, you keep climbing as a pupil. It's called evolution. I have already mentioned that the pupil of the masters are also apprentices, that their lower level they serve as transmitters of force, and also do a great variety of work in every branch of civilization and human cultures, all of which is part of the adept's work in the world. And this is where I study all things. And I'll sit with anybody of any culture. A vast amount of this is done by others who have received inspiration or suggestions from these pupils or through the various societies and agencies that they have set going or influenced. Without these influences, humanity would be poor indeed, though for the most part it knows little of the source of its true wealth. The adepts themselves cannot turn aside from their exalted work to do these lower and easier tasks, because if they did, the whole machinery of evolution would suffer. Men sometimes ask why these great ones have not written books, for example. They forget the adepts are carrying on the evolution of the world. They can hardly drop that in order to give people information with regard to some part of it. It is true that if one of the great ones had time to write a book, if his energy could not be better employed, that book would be far superior to any that we have. But if it were the plan of things that all work should be done by those who can already do it perfectly, there would be no field for the exercise or faculties. It would be difficult to see any utility in or existence in this world. So this is where there's so many of these things that go on. They're happy. A department of activity which has recently been organized on a large scale by the pupils of the master is that the principal service on the astral plane, about which I have written in the book Invisible Helpers. The greater part of that work is among the newly dead, who often find themselves there confused, bewildered, and even suffering, especially when they have been frightened during life by the hideous stories of dreadful torture after death, which form part of the stock in trade of some perverted religious sects, and there's a lot of them out there. Really religious perverted sects that make you really believe terrible things which are not true, like that preacher did in the residential school to all us children, telling us we were going to burn in hell, yelling at us every Sunday, screaming and everything, trying to traumatize us. Really messed a lot of people up. Though it is many years ago, it was still within the life of the Theosophical Society that the organized band of invisible helpers was found and set to work. It was originally composed of people still living who had decided to use their time during their sleep of the body in this definite way, but they soon drew to themselves a great many already dead who had not thought of this work before. Until that time, newcomers of the astral world were mostly left to themselves, unless it occurred to their relations to meet them and introduce them to the new life. For example, a mother who died will still watch over her children, and if any of the children died shortly after the mother, she would give them what help and information she could. And generally, the good natured people among the dead who passed on to the others what knowledge they possessed when they saw the need of help. In older civilizations, when large families and joint families were the rule, perhaps comparatively few people found themselves without a friend in need on the other side of death. Readers of Oriental literature will remember how much is said in the Hindu religions, books about the importance of family ties and duties as extending to the invisible religions beyond the veil of death. Still, the conditions there was somewhat like that of the country without a hospital or school, and the barracks of public information where many must suffer, and in time of special calamity, the war that was often most serious. So this is where in native societies, when somebody dies, we pray and we talk to the spirit of our relatives or our friends, and we let them know so they know they're on the other side. And we tell them to go into the universe. We don't tell them to stay. We don't cry. We let them know they can be happy on the other side. To call on their dad, their brother, their sisters, their loved ones, their friends, and that, so they're not scared and alone. So we ask them to do that. And then they will see a porthole or a doorway. We tell them to go there and look on the other side. Go there. That's where you need to go. We don't keep them here. We don't trap them in our homes. We don't wear their hair. We don't do things. You have to let their spirits go. You have no right trapping them. You got to stop grieving. You got to stop making your houses shrines around that. That's really, really wrong. The centennial effort. The excellent picture of the way in which the adept works for the betterment of civilization is given in the President's London lecture of 1907, in which he tells us something of the steps that were taken by the Brotherhood to lift Europe out of the terrible darkness of the Middle Ages. She explains that in the 13th century, a mighty personage then living in Tibet promulgated his order to the Brotherhood that in the last quarter of every century an effort should be made to enlighten Europe. Looking through history carefully, we can see that from that time onwards, a new ray of light was sent forth towards the end of each century from the Lodge. These have been worked out by Master Fritz Kunz as follows. And then there's this graph. And right at the top it says Roger Bacon, the restoration of mental cultures, and his achievement is democracy of culture and Renaissance. That was in 1275. 1375 was Christian Rosecrans and the spread of the culture. 1475, the printed book Fixations of Knowledge, Democracy of Knowledge and Reformation. 1575, Francis Bacon in Science, English Language and Medium. 1675, the Union of Classes attempted secret societies and political democracy of revolution. 1775, political freedom, unfortunately, mainly by revolution. 1875, Theosophical Society, Society of Physical Research, Library, Catholic Church, Co-Masonry Evolution, and then it's Democracy of Occult Evolution. And then 1975, a widespread of what is now called esotericism, evolution, and spiritual. So those are every 100 years. And it's brought more light and more things that people are searching. While the Renaissance was obviously a slow and gradual process, most authorities would put its effective commencement so much later than this and would connect it with the fall of Constantinople. Constantinople in AD 1453. The last of these efforts was the founding of the Theosophical Society in 1875. After careful consideration of the Master Mora and Kuthumi undertook the responsibilities of that step and chose that noble worker, Madame Blavatsky, to help them on the physical plane. Most students of theosophical literature know how she was prepared for what she had to do, how in due course the Brotherhood sent her to America to search for the Colonel Olcott, the commander who would supply what was lacking in herself. The power of organization, of speaking to men and gathering them around him and shaping them into a movement in the other world or outer world, and how the society was founded in New York and later had its headquarters removed to India. As I write, our society has completed its 15th year of service to humanity, and it is possible to estimate the vast amounts of good it has done in every department of human life. Its influence cannot in the least be measured by the number of the members or branches, although that is by no means insignificant, since it extends to every civilized part of the globe. But in each field of human endeavor it has sounded its characteristic note, the reverberation of which multiplied around us in the words and the work of the statesmen, of scientists, literary men, artists, and many others, of whom great numbers perhaps had never even heard the word theosophy. It has drawn attention to the realities of the invisible world and the power of the mind. It has voiced the claim in the outward life of the fact of the brotherhood, seeking no uniformity in human life, but the organization for mutual support of widely different individuals, each of whom shall be strong in the special type, and all of whom shall be bound together by the indissoluble bond of respect for the man who is different from oneself. It has brought together East and West as never before. It has demanded fair play in the comparisons of religions and revealed the unmistakable clearness through essential unity of teachings and their common source. It has brought thousands to the feet of the masters to serve them with all of their power and with all their hearts for the good of mankind for all time to come. It's pretty important to understand, like I say, what they're doing. So I'm really close to this chapter being finished, and then I'll see about going into the next one. The races. In its work, The World, the Brotherhood deals not only with the present, but looks far into the future and prepares for the evolution of new races and nations in which the qualities of humanity shall be developed in harmonious sequence, as we shall see in chapter X111, or XIII. The progress of mankind takes place in no haphazard manner, but the formation of the race with their special characteristics, physical, emotional, and mental, serving as a class in the great world schools for the development of special qualities, is precise and definite as the curriculum of timetables of any modern college. The great Aryan race, which though not yet at the prime, dominates the world today in its supreme gift of intellect, has followed after the Atlantean race, the people of which still form the majority of mankind and occupy great portions of the land surface of our globe. So there's a lot of Atlantean people around. The coming. In the connections, three great pieces of work are in the hands of present time, and the first of which is the preparation of the physical embodiment in the activity among men of the Boavistas of the world teachers, who is the same great personage, the Christ, who occupied the body of Jesus 2,000 years ago. His coming must not be confused with the continental events already mentioned. Thus belongs to the first ray and are in the department of the occult work that deals with the guidance of races and subdivisions of races, whereas this is an event which occurs only once in a long time. It is an activity of the second ray, the department of religion and education. The world teacher is even now at our door, and we may hope for increasing manifestations of his power, his wisdom, and his love. The Order of the Star of the East was established in 1911 to prepare the coming by drawing together people of every sect and religion all over the world, who for various reasons believe in the near approach of the world teacher and are willing to combine in great effort to proclaim it to the world and prepare themselves as far as may be to be useful servants to the Lord when he comes. Since the Lord Maitreya has chosen to announce his coming to the world through our president, we are justified, I think, in assuming that his teachings will be somewhat along the lines of the ideals that she has been promulgating with such wonderful eloquence during the last 37 years. Some sects of Christians still cling to the superstitions that he will come to judge mankind and to destroy the earth, so that there is a great element of fear and uncertainty connected with their belief. But all fear of God comes from a misunderstanding. The coming of Christ is indeed connected with an end, not the end of the world, but the end of an age or dispensation. That's why I say an epoch. We've gone through a long time, and now we're ending that, going into the age of Aquarius, which we're already in. The Greek word aeon, which is the same as eon in English, and just as Christ said 2,000 years ago that the dispensation of the Jewish laws had come to an end, that was 2,000 years ago they came to an end, because he had come to found a new one. And that's why I say he was a pagan. He wasn't a Jew. What they say in the Bible and that they distorted and all kinds of stuff. So the Jewish law had come to an end because he had come to found a new one, that of the gospel. So will the era of the gospel come to an end? That's where we're at now. It's coming to an end. It's finishing. It's over. The churches, all of that stuff. Age of Aquarius is down with all the old structures. Hey, Morningstar. So that of the gospel, so will the era of the gospel come to an end when he returns and found yet another. So we're going to create a whole new way of believing. This is what I say. There is lots and lots of ancient stuff on this planet we're going to get rid of. And we're going to create the new. He will give the same great teachings, and the teachings must be the same, for there is only one truth, though perhaps it may be put a little more clearly for us now, because we know a little more. It will be promulgated in some fresh dress, perhaps, with some beauty of expression, which will be exactly suited to us in this present day, and there will be some statement of it which will expel to a large number of people. It will certainly be the same, but if it has appeared in all the existing faiths, they have differed much in their methods of presenting it. But they all agree absolutely in the life which they ask their followers to live. We find considerable differences between the external teachings of Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Mohammedanism. But if we examine the good men of any one of those religions and inquire in their daily practice, we shall find that they are all leading precisely the same life, that they all agree as to the virtues a good man must possess, and as to the evil he must avoid. They all tell us that man must be charitable, truthful, kindly, honorable, helpful to the poor. They all tell us that man is hard and grasping and cruel, who is untruthful and dishonorable, is making no progress and has no chance of success until he changes his ways. As practical people, we must recognize that the thing of real importance in any religions are not the vague metaphysical speculations on matters of which no one can really know anything for certain, for those can have no influence upon our conduct. The important things are the precepts which affect our daily life, which make us this kind of man or that kind of man in our relations with our fellow men. Those precepts are the same in all existing religions. They will be the same in the new teachings, whatever it may be. Perhaps we may go a little further than that in predicting that he will teach. Surely the great central truth which he will emphasize is that the evils of the world came from the lack of love and brotherlessness. That if man will learn to love and to adapt the brotherly attitude, all evil will pass away and the golden age will dawn upon us. Not immediately. We cannot hope for that. But at least men will begin to see for themselves and to understand how much more it is to be gained along the lines than others. And I say this will happen. In my lifetime, I know it will happen. There'll be a lot of changes on this planet. We will go into the fifth dimension. We will change this whole planet in the future. The sixth subrace. The second of these great events is the molding to the form of body, emotions, and mind of the sixth subrace of our Aryan race, which has already begun to appear in America and Australia, and perhaps in other parts of the world. The great modeling powers of the Manu mind and will is at work on the inner planes, modifying even the physical types of the children of the new age. And this is where all the children now are really special. And they're not afraid of the future. They will not practice these old ways. They'll have nothing to do with it. This work is small as yet, but is destined to swell into voluminous proportions until within a few short centuries the sixth subrace will stand out distinct and admirable in its young manhood in the New World, while the Old World continues to develop the fifth subrace to its maturity and perfection. And pre-chance later still the sixth subrace radiate the glories in its manhood, will shed its blessings upon the fifth, so that for the first time a race shall have a serene and dignified decline into fruitful and venerable ages, so we'll all grow very, very old. That may be a reward of its present and coming service to the infant race, and of its fight full of sacrifice but triumphant against the powers of darkness, opening up possibilities for man such as the race has never known before. We must try to understand what it is meant by belonging to the new sixth subrace. Our ideas are liable to be inelastic. When the sixth subrace is fully established, it will show certain definite characteristics, physical, astral, and mental, which are not to be seen in the average man of the fifth subrace. Remember, it has to be built gradually out of the fifth subrace, that these new characteristics must be developed one by one in each of the egos concerned. The process of preparation is a long one, and may well extend over several lives. So when we look around and examine people, especially young people, From this point of view, we must not expect to be able to say offhand that one belongs to the new subrace and another does not. A more accurate statement would be something like this: as seems to possess about 25% of the characteristics of the new subrace, B, so A, more accurate statement would be something like A seems to possess about 25% of the characteristics of the new subrace. B has perhaps as much as 50%. C has a large portion, perhaps 75%. And D, I cannot see anything lacking. As far as I can tell, he is fully developed. Example, as you must understand that the average boy and girl whom you think hopeful is probably an A for a B, or as yet very rare in the world a C and D, practically non-existent except in our own tiny circles. And I think there's a lot of C's and D's that have been born now. Very, very special, beautiful children. Remember also the development are very unequal. A boy may have made a considerable amount of astral and mental progress before it shows much in the physical body. On the other hand, through good hereditary, he may have a physical body capable of expressing great advancements on the higher planes than he has yet attained. Very few can expect to show all the signs yet. They may be well satisfied if they show one or two. Even at its culmination, it will not be uniform. For example, it is the main dolil, I don't know how to say this word correctly, DOLICHOCEPHALOUS race. But it will always have the BRACHYCEPHALOUS subdivisions. It will contain fair-haired and dark-haired people, perhaps with blue eyes, and people with brown, so blue or brown eyes. Naturally, the astral and mental traits are the more important, but in most cases it is only by the physical appearance that one can make an estimate. The keynote is unselfishness, so they'll be very unselfish. And the dominant is eager enthusiasm for service, so they're going to want to help the whole planet. And these must be accompanied by active kindliness and large heart tolerance. He who forgets his own pleasures and thinks only how he can help others has already gone far on the path of discrimination, and the common senses are also marked characteristics. If we wish to know what physical tokens we may look, perhaps the most marked of all are delicate, well-shaped hands and feet, thin fingers and oval nails, especially thinness in fingers and thumbs when seen edgewise. The texture of the skin is also important. It is also clear and never coarse. Of faces, there are three types: the markably oval with high foreheads, the slightly less oval with broad foreheads, and the practically BARCHYCEPHALOUS, the last being rare. The definitions of the brachyphilus or whatever skull is that its breadth is 4/5 of its length. There is about the person who is approaching the sixth subrace is distinguished expressions which one who looks for it will soon begin to recognize it, and I think you will see that on the planet now. We frequently hear from independent observers and students of their recognitions of new racial types seen especially in California, Australia, and New Zealand. For example, in 1923 an address was delivered to Captain Papp, the British Association dealing with what he called the Astral American race, and its remarks including the following descriptions of its particularities. The head tends to be dome-shaped, especially over the frontal region. There is a departure from what is known as low-set ears. Hair and skin are fine, eyes luminous, intelligent, but not full, bridge and nose, early developed, lips sensitive and mobile, eyebrows prominent, frontal brain development large, type of face somewhat rectangular, but not sharp, general physiology harmonious, proportions healthy, not at all brain and no body type. The psychology a new race child manifests as rapid response to sympathy, pity in suffering, powers to comprehend principles easy, quick intuition, thoroughness, sensitiveness, quick sense of justice, absence, parrot-like intelligence, eagerness to help others. They also show a dislike of coarse food and often have not a large appetite along any lines. In other respects, they are normal children, but especially need sympathy and understanding teachers. In the previous years, there was a long article in Los Angeles Sunday Times devoted to the subject of the new race appearing in California and New Zealand. After referring to some of the mental and physical characteristics ascribed to children in the new race, it remarked particularly upon their qualities and exceptional poise of intuition. And that was like back in 19 something, early 1900s. So this has been going on for a good over 100 years now. We're into 2025. So this has been going on for a long time. That's why I say we started the Aquarian Age quite a while ago. The sixth root race, the third great event, is the foundation of the sixth root race, which is to take place physically in California about 700 years from now. A community will be established there with the Manu of that race. He who is now our Master Moria at the head of it, and besides him his co-workers throughout the ages, his Master Kathumi, who is a Boa Vista of the sixth root race. We have written of that community in Man, Whence, and How, and Whither. So that's a book. Whence, How, and Whither. Although it lies some 100 years ahead, so it's not that far away now, right? Because he's talking about, so he says 700 years from now, and that was back in the early 1900s. So we're already 100 years into that. So we're moving in that way, and it says in California this will happen. Although it lies some 100 years ahead, which for after all is but a brief time in the life of man, as all of us will realize when we look back upon it, preparations are already afoot for that also, and the Theosophical Society is playing no inconsiderable part in those. Every branch of the society is or ought to be encouraging each one of its members in its effort to apply in the outer world the theosophical knowledge that he has gained. He must, of course, do that according to his temperament and ability, and his opportunities as he mixes with men, but perhaps that helps the present race within the Theosophical Lodge, where so many different types of men foregather and must help one another. If the lodge be true to its ideals, a breadth of character should be developed in the member, for they receive in this respect an education in the spirit of brotherhood, which can scarcely be had elsewhere in the world. Most societies are organized for the attainment of one goal, and one ferocious elephants are fastened with the rope of grass blades twined. Such is the spirit of brotherhood gradually acquired by the true theosophist, holding to his fellow by inner impulses, not by outer compulsion. The member in the society is verily a training by the masters which, if successful, will fit the man to be reborn in the community of the sixth root race when it is established on the physical plane. The Kohans. In the last chapter, I tried to describe some of the numerous avenues of the work of the great masters, but there are, of course, many others, about some of which we know practically nothing. Yet what we do know indicates that the work is vast and varied, and that the adepts deal with it in different ways according to their own temperaments and preferences. There is a sevenfold division running through all things, as I must explain more fully presently, and this appears also in the Great White Brotherhood. In the hierarchy, the seven rays are clearly distinguished. The first, or ruling ray, is covered by the lords of the world. At the head of the second stands the Lord Buddha, and under these come respectively the Manus and the Bohovistas of the root races, which is predominant in the world at any given time. Parallel in ranks with these of the Mahakohans, who supervise all the other five rays, each of which nevertheless has also its own head. In my next chapter, I will explain what I can about the loftier ranks of the hierarchy, attempting in this to render some account of the work of the head of the rays, 3 to 7, and of the Master Moira and Kathumi, who stand at their level on the first and second ray. The title Kohan is given to those adepts who have taken the sixth initiation, but the same word is employed also for the head of the ray, 3 to 7, who hold very definite and exalted offices in the hierarchy. We are given to understand that the meanings of the word Kohan is simply Lord, and that it is used both generally and specifically, in much the same way as the word Lord is employed in England. We speak of a man as a lord because he possesses that title, but that is quite different from what we mean when we speak, for example, the Lord Chancellor or the Lord Lieutenant of the county. The term appears again in the name Dayan Kohan, which occurs in the secret doctrines and elsewhere, and that it refers to beings of very high station, altogether outside the occult hierarchy of our planet. And that's where people are hearing stuff from all kinds of other people and they want to be the same thing. And doing that, it's like it says here, there are really lots of different things. It says, in the last chapter, I have tried to describe some of the numerous avenues of work of the great masters, but there are, of course, many others, but some of which we know practically nothing. And there's so many kinds of things, and we all are specialists in something. We're not meant to be all the same. We're not all meant to be cross-eyed and have elephant ears. We're all here to do something, and there's teachers and that. That's why I say, stop bothering Archangel Michael. Leave him alone. Stop bothering Archangel Raphael and all this other stuff. Call in your teachers and trust in them. Master Dejwal calls tables. So this table here, and number 1 says Falhat Shekinah. The characteristic magic is Kriyaashakti, and it's Brahmical, the last religion. Number 2 is wisdom. Raja Yoga, human mind, is Buddhism. Number 3, Akasha, astrology, natural magnetic forces, Chaldean. Next one, birth of Horus, which is Hatha Yoga, physical development, Egyptian. Number 5, fire, which is alchemy, material substance, Zoroastrian. Number 6, incarnation of deity, the Bhakti, devotion, and Christianity and Kabbalah. And then the last one is ceremonial magic and elemental worship. So that is the Master Dejwal Kul table. It is necessary at this point, if we are to understand that all the parts of the work of the masters, to digress a little to say something of what is meant by the 7 rays. It is a matter of considerable difficulty. Long ago we received some information, very incomplete, certainly, but still very valuable about these rays. I remember well the occasion on which it was given to us. Mr. Cooper Oakley and I and a Hindu brother were sitting talking on the roof of the Adar in the very early days when there was only the one headquarter house and 29 acres of half jungle behind it. There came to us suddenly the Master Dajwal Kol, who was at the time the chief pupil of Master Kathumi. He gave us a great deal of teachings in those days and was always very kind and patient. And while he sat and talked to us that day, this question of the rays came up. Mr. Cooper Oakley, in his characteristic way, said, "Oh, please, Master, will you tell us all about the rays?" There was a twinkle in the teacher's eye as he said, "Well, I cannot tell you all about them until you have reached a very high initiation. Will you have what I can tell you, which will be partial and inevitable misleading, or will you wait until you can be told the whole thing?" Not unnaturally, we thought that half a loaf was better than no bread. So we said we would take what we could get. He noted down to very interesting information that he gave, but much of it was incomprehensible to us, as he had foretold. He said, "I cannot tell you any more than that, for I am bound by certain pledges. But if your initiation can make out more, I will tell you whether you are right." Even that little fragmentary information was of very great value to us. And then I read the diagram on the table of rays and characteristics which he gave us. So it tells you about Brahmical, Buddhism, Chaldean, Egyptian, Zoroastrian, Christianity, and Kabbalah, etc., and then elemental worship. It was explained that the religion written opposite of each ray is not to be taken as necessarily a perfect exposition of it, but is as simple that which now remains on earth as a relic of the last occasion on which the ray exercised dominant influences on the world. The magic of the first ray and the characteristics of the seven were not given. We may imagine the first to be Kara Shakti, and the second to be the cooperation of the Deva kingdom. The meaning of the birth of Horus could not be explained, but one of the characteristics of the fourth ray was stated to be the use of the forces of action and interaction, the male and female forces of nature, as it were. Wherever phallicism occurs in the various religions, it is always due to the materialization and misconception of some of the secrets connected with this ray. The true development of the seventh ray would be communications with and instructions from higher devas. So you got to connect to these higher planes, like 8th, 9th, 10th, and higher. After that, I have said above, it should be clear that the information has yet reached us about the rays in fragmentary. It is not only not a full account of the subject, but it is not even a perfect outline. For we were plainly told that there are huge gaps in the descriptions given to us, which could not possibly be filled up until much later. And this is where things came in the 90s, things came in the 80s and 70s, and people didn't understand it. Now a lot of people are going back and rereading and go, "Oh my God, I understand this now." So people want knowledge, and then they run around, and then they regurgitate all this stuff, and they don't know anything. And people love talking about chakras and have no idea what it's all about. And chakras go way beyond what most people understand it to be, especially understanding your front chakras are this lifetime, your back chakras are everything you've lived before, everything you've experienced. People are like, "Oh yeah, I know the chakras," and then they reiki their front chakras. I'm like, why are you being so foolish? You don't need to tamper with your front chakras. They're not a problem. They have everything you're going to manifest and create and breathe and live in this lifetime. The problems are back here in the back chakras. People, they want to say they know all of this. Oh, I'm a Reiki master. I'm like, a master of what? Where's the knowledge to make you the master? I say there's lots to know. So far as we know, very little has hitherto been written in the subject, and a little so gradually expressed as not to be at all readily intelligent. The occult teachers are remarkably reticent when questioned about it. While the first edition of this book was passing through the press, an important work on the subject appeared, The Seven Rays, and that's where I read The Seven Rays, and it explained many, many things. And we put it on our school site by Professor Ernest Wood. The material which it gives is illuminative and is presented from quite a new angle. The sevenfold division. The essential thing to understand is that there is a certain sevenfold division of everything that exists in the manifested world, whether of life or material. All life which exists in our chain of world passes through and belongs to one or the other of the seven rays, each having seven subdivisions to the universe, and there are 49 such rays, making in the set of seven the seven great cosmic rays flowing from or through the seven great logos in our chain of world, however, and perhaps in our solar system. Only one of these great cosmic rays is operating, and its subdivisions are our seven rays. It must not, of course, be supposed that our solar system is the only manifestation of that particular logos, since each of the seven great logi may have millions of systems dependent on it, as I have explained in the inner life. The whole of the solar system is a manifestation of its logos, and every particle in it is definitely part of his vehicle. All the physical matters of the solar system take, as a totality, constitutes his physical body, so we all live inside it. All the astral matters within the constitute his astral body, all the mental matters, all the mental bodies, and so on. Entirely above and below his system, he has far wider and greater existence of his own, but that does not in the least affect the truth of the statement which we have just made. This solar logos contains within himself seven planetary logi, who are, as it were, centers of forces within him, channels through which his force pours out. Yet at the same time there is a sense in which they may be said to constitute him. The matter which we have just described as composing his vehicle also composes theirs, for there is no particle or matter anywhere in the system which is not part of one or the other of them. All this is true of every plane, but let us for a moment take the astral plane as an example, for it is a matter of fluid enough to answer the purpose of our inquiry. At the same time, it is near enough to the physical to be not entirely beyond the limits of our physical comprehension. Every particle of the astral matter of the system is part of the astral body of the solar logos, but it is also part of the astral body of one or other of the seven planetary logi. Remember that this includes the astral matter of which your astral body and mine are composed. We have no particle which is exclusively our own. In every astral body there is particles belonging to each one of the seven planetary logi. Perhaps the proportions vary infinitely. The bodies of those monads which originally come forth through the planetary logos will continue all through the evolution to have more of the particles of that planetary logos than of any other, and in this way people may be distinguished as primarily belonging to one or the other of the seven great powers. Next, the seven spirits. The Christian term, these seven great beings, are found in the vision of St. John the Evangelist, who said, "And there were seven lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the seven spirits of God." And that is in Revelations IV 5. Those are the mystical seven, the planetary logi, who are life centers in the very Logos himself. Those are the true heads of our race, the heads for whose whole solar system, not for our world only, out through one of the other of that mighty seven, every one of us must have come, some through one, some through another. They are the seven sublime lords of the secret doctrines, the primordial seven, the creative powers in corporal intelligence, the Dayan Kohans, the angels of the presence. But remember that this last title is used in two quite different senses, which must not be confused. At every celebration of the Holy Eucharist among our Christian brethren, there appears to be an angel of the presence, who is in truth a thought form of the Lord Christ, a vehicle of his consciousness, and so it rightly called a manifestation of his presence. But these seven great ones receive the title for a very different reason, because they stand ever in the very presence of the Logos himself, representing there the rays of which they are the heads, representing us, therefore, which in every one of us is part of the divine life of every one of them. For though each of us belong fundamentally to one ray, the channel through which he, as a monad, flowed forth the eternal into time, yet he has within himself something of all the rays. There is in him no ounce of force, no grain of matter, which is not actually part of one or another of these wondrous beings. He is literally compacted of their very substance, not of one, but of all. Though always one predominates, therefore, no single movement of any of these great star angels can occur without affecting, to some extent, every one of us, because we are bone of their bone, flesh of their flesh, spirit of their spirit. And this great fact is the real basis of the often misunderstood science of astrology. This is where astrology is very ancient, and it's a science, and it has so much truths. We all stand always in the presence of the solar Logos, for in his system there is no place where he is not, and all that is a part of him. But in a very special sense, these seven spirits are part of him, manifestations of him, almost qualities of his, centers in him through which his power flows out. We may see a hint of this in the names assigned to them by the Jews. The first of them is always Michael, your prince, he is called. And this name means the strength of God. So when you say Michael, it is the strength of God. Or as it is sometimes interpreted, he who is like God in strength, El. The Hebrew means God. In Hebrew, El. We find it in Bethel, which is the house of God, the Elohim of the word used for God in the very first verse of the Bible. The word El occurs as a termination in the name of each of the seven spirits. Gabriel means the omniscience of God. He is sometimes called God's hero. He is connected with the planet Mercury, as Michael is with Mars. So in astrology, this tells you who's connected, right? So Michael is connected with Mars. Raphael is connected with the sun, which is a great health giver for us on this physical plane. But they made everybody afraid of the sun, right? Using sunscreen and everything, believing it was going to make you sick. And it was a lie everybody bought into since about the 1950s. And now everybody is sick when they go into the sun because that's what they believe. and he is associated with the sun, which is the great health giver for us on this physical planet. Uriel is the light and or the fire of God. Zadkiel is the benevolence of God and is connected with the planet Jupiter. So when you're looking at Jupiter in astrology, you're connecting with Zadkiel. The other archangels are usually given to Chamiel and Jophiel, but I do not at present recollect their meanings or their planets. Saint Dines speaks of these seven spirits as the builders, also calls them the cooperators of God. Saint Augustine says they have possession of the divine thought, or the prototype, and Saint Thomas Aquinas wrote that God is the primary of these angels, or the secondary cause of all visible effects. Everything is done by Logos, but through the mentions of these planetary spirits. Science will tell you that the planets are fortuitous aggregations of matter, condensations from the mass of the nebula, and so no doubt they are, but why at those particular points? Because behind each there is a living intelligence to choose the points so that they will balance one another. Truly, whatsoever exists is the outcome of natural forces working under cosmic law. But do not forget that behind every force is always the administrator, an intelligence directing and managing. In thus describing them, I have used the Christian terminology, but the same beings can be found under different names in every great religion. And that's why there's many names associated with all of this stuff, depending on what you want to believe. What's the time here? Okay, I'm going to read the 7 types of beings. And let's see what else here. And then magic and healing powers. And then I think I'm going to stop there. So there's going to be another graph here. When I get to it, I will read it, what it says. So the 7 types of beings. When then the primordial matter of spirit, which in the future was to become ourselves, first emerged from undifferent infinity, it issued through 7 channels as water might flow from the cistern through 7 pipes, each of which containing a particular coloring matter, would so tinge the water that passes through it that it would forever after be distinguished from the water of other pipes. Through all the successive kingdoms, the elemental, the mineral, the vegetable, the animal, the rays are always distinct from one another, as they are also distinct in man, though in the lower kingdoms the influence of the ray naturally act in somewhat different manner, since in them there is no individualization. It is obvious that the whole of one species of animal, for example, must be on the same ray, so that the different kinds of animals in the world might be arranged in 7 parallel columns according to the ray to which they belong. And since an animal can individualize only through association with man, at the head of each of these rays stands some class of domestic animal through which alone individualization on the particular ray takes place. The elephant, dog, cat, horse, monkey are examples of such classes. So it is clear that the impulse of the universal life which is now animating, let us say a dog, can never animate a horse or a cat, but will continue manifest through the same species until individualization takes place. Research has not yet been made as to particular animals and vegetables which stand on each ray, but I have the reason a few years ago to investigate the precious stones, and found that each ray had its own representative, through which the force of rays worked more readily than through any other. I print here the table that appears in the Science of the Sacraments, in which is shown the jewel at the head of each ray, and others which stand on the same ray and therefore hold the same kind of force, though less strongly. So there's 7 of them, and then the first one says the jewel at the head of the ray, so I'll read that, and then the substitutes. So the first one is diamond, and then the substitute is rock crystal. Second one is sapphire, and the substitute is lapis lazuli, turquoise, and sodalite. Number 3 is emerald, and the substitute is aquamarine, jade, and malachite. Number 4 is jasper, and the substitute is chalcedony, agate, and serpentine. Number 5 is topaz, the substitute is citrine and setite. Number 6, ruby, the substitute tourmaline, garnet, corallian, and carbuncle. Number 7, amethyst, substitute porphyry, Porphyry, and violane, Violane. From all that I have said above, it follows that these 7 types are visible among men, so you can see their colors. And these are the 7 rays, the 7 chakras. From all of that I have said above, it follows that these 7 types are visible among men, and that every one of us must belong to one or the other of the 7 rays. Fundamental differences of this sort in the human race have always been recognized. A century ago, men were described as the lymphatic or the sanguineous temperament, the vital or the phlegmatic. The astrology classify us under the name of the planets as Jupiter men, Mars men, Venus or Saturn men, and so on. I take it that these are only different methods of stating the basic differences of disposition due to the channel through which that happens to have come forth, or rather, through which it was ordained that we should come forth. It is, however, by means an easy matter to discover to what ray an ordinary man belongs, for he has become very much involved in matter and has generated a great variety of karma, some portion of which may be of a kind of dominance and observing his essential type. Even perhaps through the whole of an incarnation, a man who is approaching the path ought to be showing in himself a definite driving impulse or leading power which has the character of the ray to which he belongs and tends to lead him to the kind of work or service which distinguishes that ray. So when you look at somebody's auric field, you're going to see a color that's going to give you an idea which ray. And that's why I always say if you could see people's auric fields, it doesn't lie. You can't steal people's energies and aura colors and stuff like that. And tends to lead him into a kind of work or service which distinguishes that ray and will also bring him to the feet of one of the masters upon it, so that he becomes enrolled, as it were, in the college of which the Kohan of the ray may be regarded as the principal. And that's why I'm like, you have teachers. Stop acting like you order the universe around. Start learning to be the servant of these teachers. And that's where I'm like, you gotta be a servant of the light, and whatever your color is, work with that. Stop trying to be every damn thing on the planet. Magic and healing powers, it may help a little towards the comprehension of these difference of types if I give 1 or 2 examples to the methods likely to be employed, judging from the table I have printed above, by persons on different rays, when they want to use magic to produce a given result. The first ray man would attain his object by sheer force of relentless will. So this is where you see people focusing over and over for years to manifest something. The hubcap master was really good at that, manifesting over all kinds of silliness. Without condescending to employ anything in nature of a means at all. He of the second ray would also work by force of will, but with the full comprehension of the various possible methods and the conclusion direction of his will into the channel of the most suitable one. To the third ray man, it would come most naturally to use the forces of the mental plane, noticing very carefully the exact time when the influences were most favorable to his success. The fourth ray man would employ for the same purpose the finer physical forces of the ether, while his fifth ray brother would be more likely to set in motion the currents of what's used to be called the astral light. The devotee of the sixth ray would achieve his result by the strength of his earnest faith in his particular deity, in the efficiency of his prayer to him. This seventh ray man would use elaborate ceremonial magic and probably invoke the assistance of non-human spirits if possible. Again, in attempting the cure of a disease, the first ray would simply draw health and strength from the great fountain of the universal life. The second would thoroughly comprehend the nature and malady and know precisely how to exercise his willpower upon it to the best advantage. The third would invoke the great planetary spirits and choose a moment when astrological influences were beneficent for the application of his remedy. And you can use astrology to do this. And that's why in the ancient times, to be a doctor, you had to be an astrologer. The fourth would trust chiefly to physical means such as a massage. The fifth would employ drugs. The sixth, faith healing. And the seventh, mantras or magical invocations. In all above cases, the operator is, of course, free to use any of the different powers mentioned, but would probably find the most effective instrument in his hand to be that which is typical of his own ray. And that's why people try to do everything. I don't bother. I call on the universe and I work with the universe. And that's why I say clearing. And people always say, oh, what does a clearing mean? Oh, is it Reiki? Oh, is it shamanism? It's energy from the universe. And it gets rid of garbage and it brings in what is right. And I use astrology. I use all kinds of knowledge. Spent my life studying. I believe in plants. I believe in all kinds of things. And the universe comes in and it does its magic. I'm just a hollow bone. Whatever needs to come through. Even me reading here every day, there's energies coming through for everybody. Some people believe it, some don't. Some people understand what I'm reading, some won't. Some people are here as young souls, and they have thousands and millions of lives yet to play in the sewer systems, to do all kinds of stuff, to be scientists, to be gurus, to be whatever it is. And when you really, really are working with the universe, you're just a conduit. You're just a messenger. Energies just flow through. And you're just part of something way bigger. You respect all religions. You respect all things that were created by the universe. The universe created them all. Not everything will work for you. I spent years of my life trying to practice and learn things. And I wasted sometimes 5 years of my life knowingly trying to force something to work because everybody is like, oh yeah, you got to do this and this is what you're going to get and this is what's going to happen. After 5 years, I was so angry at myself for wasting all that time trying to make everybody happy and be like them. I never want to be like any of you. I just want to be me. That's all I've ever wanted to be. And I don't want anybody going around pretending to be me. In the past, people have done this many times, even the hubcap master. He'd go around pretending to be me. All his friends told me this. And I even asked and questioned him about it, and he would lie. Even when his friends were around and they were talking, so he's like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, and then he would say, oh yeah, the for this and the for that, and oh this and oh that, and oh you can't do this, and oh karma, and it was all just crap. And it's like, I don't want to be running my own ashram and being a guru and all these other things. I just want to be me. That's all I've ever wanted to be. And there's people out there trying to be all kinds of things. Why are you not happy with your own culture? Why are you not happy with your own ancestors? Why aren't you happy learning what your ancestors knew and really love them so they can help you? Why are you trying to be so many other things than what you're supposed to be? Why are you so confused? I always ask the universe. It's like, I didn't choose to be a sun dancer. I asked the universe, am I meant to do this? And then it showed me in a dream. And I says, okay, if that's real, then this is what will put me in that direction. And they manifested something to prove this is the direction I needed to go in. And I didn't say I'm going to spend the rest of my life being a sun dancer. People say, oh yeah, you have to do it 17 years. Oh, you got to spend the rest of your life doing it. Oh, you got to do it for 40 years. There's so many things to learn and do on this planet. And if I only stay stuck in one, then I'm never going to evolve and grow. I like living my world, and it ain't very big. And I work very, very hard to help people. And people work very hard to desecrate my life and anything I choose to do. And I'm fine with it. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm trying so hard to help people, and I believe there's people that will realize and they will receive this and it will change them. I'm not telling you what to do. I have no desire to. Just like my granddad never told me what to do. Just like I don't tell Cindy what to do. I allow her to choose. We all are here to choose. And we're all here to honor our own spirits and our own light and whatever. And I'm really hoping you will figure it out for yourself. There's so many books and things out there. And there's lots of practice. Like it says, every religion came from God. Every religion has a teacher and a truth. And if you can't accept that, then you're missing part of reality. Took me a long time to figure this out on my own. And my granddad encouraged me to search and learn. And like I say, I'm in my 60s. I hope to be 1,000 years old walking on this planet and look back in time. And I say, well, I will get there in stages. I'm not here to prove anything. I know what I believe. I'm not here to justify your belief system. I'm here trying to give you information. That's why I started TikTok. That's why I've shared many, many things. I talk about me because it's my life. Nobody was there. Not my sisters, not my brother, not my mom, not my aunts, not my uncles. I walk through my life. I'm the one in here who knows that truth. People have their beliefs around that. We all have something. And we either do right or we don't. And like I say, in the future, I'm going to be very, very selective in who and what I have in my life. Because I was an open book. I opened all doors and I just allowed anybody in. And in doing that, I went through very, very difficult things. And the people that did that will never own up that's what they did. They will never tell the truth. And that's theirs to live with because that means they have lots of karma. They have lots to learn. And there's many places they need to grow to understand that. One day they will be able to tell the truth because when we die here, everything we've done, every thought we've ever done, we put in the Akashic records. You can't erase it. You can't hide it. And it's there for everything in creation to see, look at, choose, and do whatever with. And we place it there because that's the way the universe works. And the universe allows everybody. That's where I love the Akashic records. I love going there and looking at everything about my life. I don't want to look at anybody else's. Got no concern with anybody else's. My life is important to me. My loving me is important to me. My reality of future is important to me. I just want to see all you guys get there. One day I'd love to stand in the future and shake all of your hands. And this is where you start realizing it's like I share a lot of things because I really do care. But other than that, I can't make nobody think, practice, believe anything. That's not what God does. God is only love. Gives you everything. Create what you want. Do what you want. It's your journey. It's your pirate ship. It's your whatever you choose it to be. So again, I thank you for everything, for your time, for your donations, for listening to me, for trying to hear these books. Even if they don't make sense to you, know that there are higher beings around you. In some way, they will help you make sense of it all.